What up? So today, yeah, it's fine. All right. So what up? Today we're gonna continue talking about waves, but these are not waves on the water because there's multiple types of waves in the world besides waves that are in the water, which is kind of weird for us surfers because realistically, do any other waves matter? Let's be real. Just kidding. But we're gonna be talking about. Where'd my little thing go? Oh, it's in my pocket. We're going to be talking about waves. What are waves? Waves. Sorry, my phone just went off. A wave is a disturbance or vibration that travels through types of matter, okay, and transferring energy back and forth. So all waves are similar in the fact that they have a wavelength, they have frequency, an amplitude, and they have speed. So essentially, a wave consists of four parts. They have a wavelength. Wow. I obviously don't write much anymore. Wavelength, which is a distance in between the two peaks. For us, also, that for surfers, that's known as the period. And then they have the frequency, which is how many of those waves pass through a given point. So, for example, like, hey, this is the point. How many times does a wave pass through that given point in a second? Okay? And then you have the amplitude, which is essentially, oh, I guess I could have left that there. The amplitude of a wave, it determines its brightness. And the amplitude is how up and down that is from its baseline, right? And then wave, frequency, amplitude, and then the speed. And then we have the speed, which essentially is how fast, that wave is traveling depending on the medium, because, it can travel through like water, through fucking walls, through space, through vacuums, whatever, so all these characteristics are part of what a wave is, okay? So you got mechanical waves. And those things need air and water to be able to move through. So it's like, they can move through other mediums as well. But those are like ocean and sound waves and like seismic waves. So these things require mediums like water, fucking, yeah, air to end up moving through. And then you have electromagnetic. Electromagnetic waves. And now these are sound waves that can travel through vacuum. They don't need anything to, to travel. They can move through nothing, pretty much. Now, the electromagnetic waves, their spectrum are all these waves actually travel at the speed of light. So the speed of light is essentially, it's like 299,792 kilometers a second. And I really don't have a way to put that into perspective for you. It's just really fast, and that's why you can see, light. But the difference with electromagnetic waves is the fact that they differ in wavelength and energy. Okay? So, haha. All right, so essentially with this, you would have, I'm going to give you the spectrum, okay? Electromagnetic spec of waves. Alright, so pretty much right here for the electromagnetic spectrum of waves, you have, this is the length of the light that we are able to see. For humans, we pick up 380 nanometers to 750 nanometers. Okay? Violet is 380 to 450, so it's on the smallest of the range. And then 620 to 750 is the red, and obviously the numbers are here. Everything's in between it. So blue is 450 to 495. Green is 495 to 570. Yellow is 570 to 590. Orange is 590 to 620. Red 720 to 750. Now with that, the lower the frequency, the longer the wavelength. So for example, and yeah, the lower the frequency, the longer the wavelength. Long wavelength. Wow. Length. Oh. The higher the frequency, the shorter the wavelength. Okay? So, along with that is the amplitude, which is the brightness of the color, right? So, for example, you know, say you have, it's your baseline. You're not seeing anything because you're dead. Just kidding. But say you got this little wavelength, right? And the frequency is having it pass through this point pretty good. And, you know, and how tall this wave is depending on the brightness of the color. Now, if you're within this same range right here of speed, but your wave is a little bit taller, the brighter the color is going to be. Cool. Now, continue on with the colors. White light essentially contains all the colors, which is kind of a weird thing to think about, but an easier way to think about it is if you have like a little prism, right? I wonder if I have one around. If you know, if you have a little prism and it's shining in the light, when the light hits it and it's spinning at different angles, you have like tons of color that comes off of it, right? So white essentially, or white light or clear light, essentially contains every color that exists. Now, with that, something that's kind of cool is these colors and frequency ranges relate to, in Eastern culture, some Eastern culture, energy points on the body. So those are called chakras. Bum, 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 bum. Chakras. And these are essentially points along the body where meridians of energy intersect and cross, right? And so you have your root chakra, you have your sacral, I don't know if I'm spelling these right, chakra, you have your solar plexus chakra, you have your heart chakra, you have your throat chakra, you have your third eye chakra, and you have your crown chakra. What's kind of cool about this is, so these relate to different parts of your body, but then also, and I'll actually dip into that in a second, just because I find it fascinating, so maybe you will too, and if not, who cares, you're gonna listen. So these are also related to colors. Okay, so, and it follows the rainbow. So your root chakra, do I have my red? Is red, okay? Your sacral is orange. Your solar plexus is yellow. Your heart is green. Your throat is blue. Your third eye is indigo, which is also a color on Surfline's forecasting, which I never saw that here in mainland US. I didn't see that until I went and surfed in Indo, and I had no idea that indigo was a color on Surfline. And then you have your crown chakra, which is violet or a white light. So now, color. Something too that these kind of things are all associated with. So like your root chakra essentially is your sense of security and feeling grounded, and your sense of who you are, right? And so obviously that's related to your roots. Then you have your orange, which is your sacral chakra. This is your water chakra. And essentially it's your chakra of life, so your ability to reproduce and things like that. Right? Water. Your solar plexus is yellow, and it's related to your energy, so also the sunshine. And your ability to take in energy and put it back into the world with things that you love. Your green chakra is related to forests, jungles. It's the earth element, right? Let's say that forest, jungle. It's your ability to establish and create a family-like environment, and to permeate the things that you believe. Now your throat chakra is blue. It's related to the sky. It's your ability to be able to speak things into existence or bring things into existence in the world. Your third eye is related to the stars, and it's your ability to understand the importance of these all before it, and what the importance of the balances of those, because essentially, for example, you need your roots to feel centered in who you are, and so you have to know your beliefs. You have to figure out the things that mean something to you, and when you have that, what happens is you water those roots. And as you water those roots, you end up being able to carry on the things that you believe farther. And when you're able to do that, it gives you a different source of energy and a different meaning or belief in life. And it gives you, just like just fucking seeds it. And then from there, you're able to, if you have your roots established and you're watering your roots and you're getting energy from the sun, then you're able to grow a family or a forest. You have your gardens of life. You have your world that you're permeating around. And then from there, that forest creates the air that you breathe, right? It creates the environment or the vibes and the energy that's around you. And then from there, it allows you to be able to dream. It allows you to be able to see from a third eye, bird's eye view, like, hey, what is this world that's below me, And it gives you the ability to see. It's like if there's something in your life that's out of balance, then it's probably related to one of those areas, So it's just like, hey, and the other thing with it too is you can only have the things that are further down the list if you're balanced from the beginning. So for example, if you're strong in who you are, but you have a shitty relationship, that's going to wear on who you are, right? And so you're not going to have the energy to put force towards the things that you love because your soul's not going to be as filled, right? But, say you have healthy roots, good relationships, and stuff like that, and you take care of your body by putting in a lot of good nutrients, working out, all that kind of stuff, you're creating good energy. But you have a shitty family, right? That's going to limit the belief that you have in yourself. And if it limits the belief that you have in yourself, how are you going to be able to stand behind the things that you believe, right? So essentially, it kind of goes down the list, if that makes sense. Like, you have to have an understanding of how all of these relate to the different parts of your life. And when you're able to understand how they relate to the different parts of your life, then, if any of those places are in balance, you can go to places like this to help you with your thoughts and figuring out how to bring balance to that area, So it's like, if you're having a hard time with your family, go to the forest, go on a hike, go do different things like that, and it'll help you be able to think clearly in that area to figure out your issues and your problems and how to solve them, But essentially, when you're able to have all of these balanced out, That's your heaven, right? So that's your crown chakra, and so that's what this relates to essentially is your heavens or your cosmos, whatever it is that you want to call it, right? And so what's also kind of cool about it is they're all related to a musical key. Ba-da-da-da. All right. So your roots is related to the key of C. So if you're in the range or the key of C and stuff like that, or if you're having issues and you play frequency tracks in the key of C, well, it might help you with the things that you're struggling with in your self-security or who you are. You know? And then you have your sacral, which is your D chakra. Okay? Then you have your solar plexus, which is your E chakra. Then your heart chakra is related to the F. G is related to your throat. A is related to, your third eye. And B is related to your crown chakra. And what is kind of interesting or important about this is the fact that all of these sounds are essentially wavelengths. And these wavelengths, are able to enter to those parts of your body more direct just because they're able to. I'll get into that actually in a later thing. Sound in the body, it's actually pretty cool. Sound in our entire world. Maybe I'll tap into it later. But the to give you the frequency range too, since I'm right here, for your roots, 256 hertz. There's actually 2 keys that you can mess around with this thing. So 256 hertz or 396 hertz. Sorry, I got shitty writing. 288 hertz and 417 hertz. And then you got 320, 528, which this is related to cellular and DNA repair, which is kind of pretty cool. And then you got 341, 639, 384, 741, and these are, all in hertz. I wrote them down back there because I forget these ones sometimes. 480 and 963. So these are all frequency ranges that are associated with these chakras as well, which are kind of cool. So they're different, essentially, wavelengths that can penetrate into that energy vortex or that energy meridian inside of your body. So, random stuff you might not know that might be handy. I think it's cool. There's also this kind of energy, which gets into your body sometimes a little bit faster. First form. Alright. Now, so it's like, where do you actually get this light coming from? I know it's an energy or a wavelength, right? So, energy in light is called a photon. And essentially, what does that mean? So, you got electrons inside of atoms, right? So you got all these, we'll just call that an atom. It's a pretty damn big atom. But when this thing, the little electron that's inside of these things right here, when that changes energy levels, so it either gains energy or loses energy, what happens is that gain or that loss in energy is what creates light. So when it jumps up in energy level, so it's like that, it creates light. Or when it loses an energy level, it creates light. Cool? Now, the hotter something is, the shorter the wavelength it is. like blue or violet, that kind of thing. The cooler something is, the longer the wavelength is, which is red and infrared, which is kind of interesting because, like, in my mind, I've always associated those as opposite. I always think is like hot as red and cool as blue, but red lasers are not as warm as blue lasers, which is kind of crazy, and that's just because of the higher frequency modulation. Yeah. So light too, why we end up seeing colors and lots of different colors, and why objects have different colors, is because when light, we'll call this a tree. Those are the trees I'm around a lot nowadays. I'm not around palm trees as much anymore because I've been inside Washington for like 11 years now. So, but when light, whoa, I know, the sun is rare in Washington, but when this light comes and it hits the objects, these objects essentially are different densities of atoms compressed together. And so when it hits these objects, it changes the speed at which it goes around the objects. It goes like, and then it goes around the objects. It goes around the objects. And when it goes around the objects, some light is absorbed in the object of matter, and the light that is refracted away is the color that you see. So, for example, with water, as the light the jets are flying. As this light hits the water, majority of the lower frequency or the longer wavelengths are absorbed into the water. The shorter wavelengths and the higher frequencies, like blue and violet, are refracted. So the reason, and green is also in there because sometimes the water is like a turquoisey green color depending on where you're at. And the reason those are reflected is because the higher frequencies bounce off the surface of the water, and so those are the light spectrum that we are seeing because the other light is absorbed into the water. It's kind of trippy. So essentially, and then you got to ask yourself, what the heck is matter then at that point, right? Because it's like, all right, so you got light with certain wavelengths and they're hitting all this matter, these objects that we see, like the trees and stuff like that, and at the base of everything in the universe, it's essentially subatomic particles or atoms, which is kind of weird. Everything is a bunch of little fucking energy balls, and all these energy balls are held together in different densities. Now, these different densities are essentially controlled by a couple different forces. You have electromagnetic force, which holds the atoms and the molecules together. You have nuclear force, which holds the protons and the neutrons together. And then you have the weak nuclear force, which is essentially like radioactive decay or nuclear fusion. And then you have gravity. And that like holds planets and things like that in a sense. So essentially what that is though, is those are a shit ton of little atoms. And all these atoms are moving. They are vibrating because vibration is matter. And all these little things are vibrating. And when they're vibrating, they're essentially moving at different wavelengths or different frequency modulation. And certain densities of matter attract other densities of matter, and vice versa. And so they all just hang out and all these kind of different things. Now, something that's fascinating is that our brain, for example, our brains, when we're working out of certain parts of our brain, what happens is we're working in different wavelengths or wave ranges, okay? So, off the top of my head, I'd have to have a paper to tell you, but we work on different frequencies or wave ranges. And the light that we see coming in activates those different wavelengths and wave ranges. Now, the question in the universe has always kind of been, what created the first initial energy? consciousness, God, or thought, or whatever it is, was the first moment this energy spread out through everything, right? And as that energy moved and bounced off each other, and light started messing with things, different energies started finding other pieces of different energy and kind of kicking it together. And as time has went on, this is, essentially created the universe. But then also, wherever we come into play with it, is we have conscious thought, right? Conscious thought is the first moment of energy that we as humans have. So when you think of conscious thought, what happens is a little wave fires in your brain, and it ripples, right? Now, the more you think this thought, the more time you spend creating this wavelength. The more time you start seeing and creating this wavelength, you end up speaking this wavelength. And if it's something that you believe, and when you speak this wavelength, you amplify it out. So there's a theory, it makes kind of sense, is what if the whole world really was just blank in the beginning? Depending on the different religions that you look at and different things, they all have something similar to where there was something that decided to start creating, and it revolves around energy, whether it's like, hey, God said let there be light and there was light, or you have like shit, my brain spaced it for some reason. There's quite a few other ones, but whatever it is, whatever they are, there was a first moment of energy that was put out, okay? Now, the first moment of energy spoken into the world was a projection of the energy from our bodies or consciousness or whatever it was, right? And that direction of energy was a wavelength that decided, or that essentially grouped together a bunch of different atoms. And as life has went on, I believe that we continue to create so many different things in this world, because even though most of us have forgotten, we have the ability to create based off of our thought. Our thought is the original creators of everything that exists in this world, We're gonna have a whiteboard, surfboards, this thing, oh no, TVs, cars. We wouldn't have anything unless if it first wasn't a thought. So that first moment of thought, maybe back then, like when the world was still younger and stuff like that, maybe our words had more power than they do now, because when we spoke our words, we spoke them with a different intention, or we spoke them with just a lot more energy that came with it, or maybe because there was less things holding everything together, that the world was more responsive. And maybe all of this stuff holds memory, and maybe the way it was created and the intentions that were put into it dictates how rigid of form that it is. So I don't know. Essentially what I'm trying to say is the fact that our words and our thoughts are the first moment of energy that for us creates wavelengths that we send out into the universe. And so our thoughts are important for a lot of different reasons, but our thoughts are important to spend time with, as well as to be aware of, because whatever you think, you start to believe, and whatever you start to believe, you start to speak. Whatever you start to speak, you start to create. And so it kind of honestly follows the chakras in a little bit of a way. But I'm rambling right now. I'll get into stuff like that way later. Essentially, all I was trying to do with this topic today was talk to you about, for a lot of different reasons, but our thoughts are important to spend time with, as well as to be aware of, because whatever you think, you start to believe, and whatever you start to believe, you start to speak. Whatever you start to speak, you start to create. And so it kind of honestly follows the chakras in a little bit of a way. But I'm rambling right now. I'll get into stuff like that way later. Essentially, all I was trying to do with this topic today was talk to you about color. Color is wavelengths, and it's a different form of waves and energy that aren't in the water, but they're still pretty cool. And all this energy comes from somewhere. Even the waves that we ride comes from the same energy that creates the color, comes from the same energy that we put out in our thoughts. It's just different amplitudes